a while. I've been busy, so I haven't had a chance to make any fun videos, but this is a perfect opportunity because once a year I make fruitcake. Now, this isn't American fruitcake. When I first moved to the States, I had no idea that Americans produced this really random log of glommed together glacé cherries and pineapple and called it fruitcake. Yeah, I'm not surprised there's so many references to nobody liking fruitcake in American TV shows and movies. But this is proper Scottish whiskey fruitcake like my granny used to make. And that's what I'm going to make today. And you know what? You'll probably like it. But you can watch me make it, decide whether it's for you or not. Come over and have a slice. It's really delicious. But it does involve a lot of work and yeah, and a lot of ingredients. So I'm gonna talk you through it. First of all, I'll give you the recipe so that you have that, and then I'll show you all the prep. So I have my little cheat sheet down here because I would not remember this. So this recipe is kind of a combination of a few different recipes and things that I sort of put together, and then I spent a few years tweaking it here and there to make it the way that I remembered, because you know, this is like a sense memory thing for me, like reminds me of my granny's cake. So I start off with we've got 4 cups of brown sugar, darker the better, 2 cups of butter. You can use salted or unsalted butter. If you use salted butter, just reduce the salt that you put in. So it's easy enough. 8 eggs, and you're going to separate the yolks from the whites. So it's best to let your eggs come to room temperature just to have them for baking. Your butter too. You're going to have a cup of treacle, which you Americans call molasses, which is equally delicious, whatever you call it. 5 cups of all-purpose flour, which you're going to sift before you measure, of course. And then you start getting your choice of things. So there's 4 teaspoons of seasoning. Now, I like cinnamon, I like allspice, I like some nutmeg. I'm going to try putting in some cardamom this year because, you know, I'm going to try a little. And then I don't put ginger in because I put crystallized ginger in the cake, so I don't want too much of that ginger taste coming through. But you know what, it's up to you. You put in what you want. So, and this is, then you're going to have half a cup of whiskey, and of course this is a Scottish fruit cake, so you're going to use Scotch whiskey, right? Yeah, you can use a blend, use something cheap, doesn't matter, whatever you make your hot toddies with, use that. Not a single malt. It's not necessary to pour your, you know, $40 whiskey into a cake. It's fine. And then you're going to do 7 to 7.5 pounds of dried fruit and nuts. Now, this again is your choice. What do you like? But I would suggest you stick with things that are more traditional. Steer away from the mango and the passion fruit and the... Do you get dried passion fruit? I don't know. Steer away from that stuff. No pineapple, no glacé cherries. That's just disgusting. Dried fruit, and I'm talking like organic if you can get it. So, you know, currants, prunes, raisins, blueberries, cranberries are pretty good. I like my crystallized ginger. That's the one thing I always put some of that in. You know, it's up to you. Whatever you like doing. Dried cherries are good. No glacé cherries, but dried cherries are good. And then I usually do almonds and walnuts. So, got a big pile of bags of dried fruit. I've raided Trader Joe's. And then you're going to put in a half a teaspoon of salt, except for if you use salted butter, in which case you're going to put in a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Simple enough, right? You'd think. So basically, the first thing that I do is I sort out and chop up all this fruit and nuts that I have piled up beside me. Now, I don't have a bowl that's big enough for all this junk, so I use the roasting pan. You know, needs must, right? So improvise. Before I get into the whole method of it, I'm going to chop up my fruit and nuts. And so I'll probably like fast forward that bit because you don't really need to watch me doing all of that. It's incredibly boring. So I'll do a little bit of it and then we'll skip ahead, okay? Okay, I'm going to chop up all of these fruit and nuts. I'll fast forward through this bit so you don't have to watch it all. But keep a tally because you want to have like 7 to 7.5 pounds by the time you're done. And if you forget it, then you'll have to reweigh everything. Now I do have a little handy dandy weighing machine, but to be fair, 8 ounces, that's half a pound. So we'll go like that. So this all just gets put in the big container. I can open them. All right, that's the fruit and nuts measured out. I have about 7.5 pounds of them there. I'm gonna just wash my hands because those prunes were sticky, and tidy up a little bit, and I'll be right back. Okay, dark brown sugar, 4 cups. Now, when you're doing sugar like this, yeah, it's messy, but you want to make sure you pack those cups. Okay, that's fine. Three. Gotta get another one. So make sure when you've got sugar left over that you store it in an airtight container, because otherwise it's gonna go hard. You don't want hard sugar. Unless you're making sugar cubes, then you don't want hard sugar. But we don't tend to make sugar cubes. At least I don't. What would I use them for? I don't know. Oh my goodness. Just gonna be digging in here with my hands in a minute. Don't worry, I washed them. Okay. 4. Seal this up nice and tight. I want to let air into it. Can possibly help it. Anyway, all the sugar's in here. Oh, it's a lot of sugar. Now, butter. These are a little bit cold still, but they're starting to come to room temperature. Okay, so each stick is half a cup. We want to have 2 cups of butter. Oh yeah. So this part's going to take me a while to cream these together. If you have one of those fancy mixie machines, you can do it with that. I have one, but it's from the 1970s and the motor is not the greatest. So I prefer to use good old fashioned elbow grease to sort this out. But anyway, this is going to take a bit, so come back and I'll still be here. Okay, creamed together sugar and butter. So it's a nice paste. Yes. Okay, next up we're putting in the egg yolks and the treacle. So here are my 8 egg yolks, which I've already separated from the whites. Yeah, baby. This looks good. Ooh, squelchy. Mix that in. Again, if you have one of those stand mixers, you're probably going to get this done a lot faster than I do. But, you know, I only do it once a year, so I don't really resent the time. Okay, treacle, which we have a cup of molasses, as you guys like to call it. I had no idea where to find treacle when I first moved here. I didn't know that it was the same thing as molasses. I had to look that up. And this is pre-internet, so that wasn't the easiest thing to find out. Ooh, there, almost. I'll do the rest of it. Oh, I'm gonna get covered in this stuff, but that's okay. Baking is messy. Wear an apron, or just wear old clothes, like I do. Alright, let's scrape this out. Oh, yeah. Treacle. I used to love a bit of bread and treacle when I was a kid. I'm imagining most people here have never had bread and treacle and think that's really weird. Try it. You might like it. Oh my goodness me. Big, gooey. Oh. Look at this. And I am covered in treacle. I spend a lot of my time washing my hands. Just still a piece of butter in there. It's okay. All right. Okay, next you're going to add in all of the dry ingredients. So first things first, I'm sifting some flour because we want 5 cups of flour pre-sifted. So let's see if I guessed well. Now, ooh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, the last cup of flour, I'm not going to put in this bowl. I'm actually going to put it in with the dried fruit that I cut up earlier, and toss the dried fruit in it so that they don't all stick together. So that is what the last cup of flour is for. I'm making a mess, making a big mess. Ah, there we go. Perfect, good enough. All right, so that goes in there, and I'll mix that up in a bit too. We create an awful lot washing up doing this. Okay, so I've got my flour, and to this I'm going to add the baking soda and the seasoning and some salt. We need 2 teaspoons of baking soda. And I have a fresh one here, so this is my half teaspoon measure. Because you know, who needs to all this stuff, all right? So that's half, 1, And because I use salted butter, I'm only going to use a 1/4 spoon of salt in here. Alright. Now, I do 4 teaspoonfuls of spice altogether. Whatever I use, that varies according to the year. So usually I put in a couple of spoonfuls of cinnamon. So that's, we'll do 1 1/2. Okay. So I'm going to try, I want to put in some cardamom this year because I haven't done that before. So I'm going to put in 1/2 of cardamom. That brings us up to 2. Then I've got nutmeg. I'll do 1 spoonful of nutmeg. And I'll do 1 spoonful, of allspice. Which is probably all I have left in this jar. Good enough. There is room for error in this recipe, obviously. Alright, so I'm just going to mix this through so that the spice is fairly evenly distributed. Get this out of the way. Alright, now I'm going to add the dry ingredients and this. And along with all of this, I'm going to put in the whiskey, which I need a cup for. Oh, this will do. Okay, so the next step is to combine the dry ingredients with the wet ingredients, and we're also going to add some whiskey. It's only 1/2 cup of whiskey. However, once you've baked this cake, you do add more whiskey to it. I'll explain that later. Oh no, don't spill your whiskey. Okay, it's okay. The liquid table. Alright, so I'm just going to start mixing in the flour and everything that was mixed into that flour. Now this recipe makes 3 loaf pans. You could also use it to make like a big square cake instead if you're doing something for a special occasion. This style of cake is what they originally used as a traditional wedding cake. So if you can imagine, you know, a big square cake, you could do that. You could do it as layers if you wanted, but I think that's getting a bit fancy. I do loaves because I make this in 2 batches and I end up with 6 loaves, which then I cut up into halves or thirds and distribute amongst my friends as gifts during the holidays. I also save one for myself because who doesn't like fruitcake? Well, maybe some of you, but I love this fruitcake. So it makes a lot. And if you feel confident reducing the recipe so that you're only making 1 loaf pan, you might want to go ahead and try that. But I will say that this stuff lasts forever. And I'm talking without freezing, without refrigeration. Just put it in a airtight container. It'll last like 3 years. I'm not kidding. I gave one to my dad and it took him about 3 years to eat it and it was still good. And I've personally kept them a couple of years because, you know, it's a really great cake, but it's not the kind of cake that you're going to eat on a daily basis. But you don't have to because it doesn't go stale. It stays good. So I'm adding the whiskey, sloshing that around. So once you've baked this cake, and I always bake it a few months in advance, I like it to have time to mature. Now you can bake it closer to the time, but I would give it a couple of weeks at least. Just let that flavour develop, because fresh out of the oven is good, but the longer you wait, you know, a few months is really good, especially since during those few months, every couple of weeks, take it out of the cupboard, pour a little whiskey over it, let that soak in, and put it back in the cupboard again. So that's why, while we're only adding this half cup right now, there'll be more whiskey in it before the end of the day. However, for those of you with children or non-drinkers, the alcohol evaporates. It's not a booze-filled cake. I mean, it is. But there's no effect of booze. It's just the flavour. So you can rest assured it is child-friendly. Whoops. Look at me. I'm covered in flour. Anyway, yeah, my granny used to make one of these for my dad's birthday every year and send it down to my mum in one of those big red biscuit tins. You know, they're like the selection biscuit tins that you used to get. She used to send it down, big square cake. My mum would keep it in the cupboard and pour whiskey over it. And then right before my dad's birthday, which happened to be the 25th of December, she would pull it out and put on a layer of marzipan and then a layer of icing. Yeah. So that's generally what I do. Once I've let it rest, before I give it away, I bring it out, make my marzipan, put that on, let that set up. Then I'll make whatever kind of frosting. I like a Drambuie buttercream. So I'll do that. Maybe I'll do a video with me frosting this cake later on. Alright. I am absolutely covered in stuff again. Wash my hands again. Okay. Oh, my arm is getting tired. This is a workout. Oh, all right. Whew. Yes, indeedy. So, at this point, this is where you're gonna separate your mixture into more than one bowl, because we're gonna add all that volume of fruit and nuts to it. That's a lot of stuff. It's not gonna fit in this bowl. If you have one of those huge bowls, it might fit, but not in this one. All right, I'm gonna go wash my hands. I'm gonna get my other bowls. I'll be right back. Okay, 2 bowls. As I said, these are just cheap plastic bowls from the 99-cent store, so don't feel like you need to get something special that you're gonna keep just for this. I did keep them because I make this every year. Anyway, so and I do this very haphazardly. I could measure it actually and get the same amount in each, but it's fine. It all kind of comes back together in the end anyway, so. Oh yeah, this is why you wash your hands. Okay, so let's see how I did, out of curiosity. Turn on my scale. Okay, 12:15. 12:19. we're gonna add, oh, the fruit and nuts that we put together. I haven't mixed in the flour yet, so I'm gonna do that. So we wanna make sure that all of those pieces of fruit, especially the ones that we cut up that are extra sticky, get coated, that we break up any little clumps, because we want this fruit to be evenly distributed through the cake. There we go. Nice. Okay, so now very scientifically gonna just do one for you, one for you, until I've got this all out here. Have put the fruit nut mixture into our bowls, and now we have to mix this through. Again, you don't need to watch all of this. We'll come back. Okay, so we combined both bowls together. Now I'm sort of just mixing that in a little bit. Put the stuff up from the bottom. Oh, it's so heavy. Yes, this is not a light cake. This is not your sponge. This is, you know, this is a brick of cake. Delicious brick of cake, but a brick of cake. All right. I'm gonna call that good. Whoops. Just put stuff all over the table. Okay, so preheat your oven. 300 degrees. It's a low heat. And what you're going to want to do is in the bottom of the oven, you're going to put a like a dish of water. I usually use like you know, one of those glass baking dishes, and I just sort of half fill it with water, put it in the bottom. So you're going to bake the cakes for 3 hours. The first 2 hours, you're going to let that water be in the bottom of it. Keeps everything nice and moist in there. After the first 2 hours, take that out and then just let them bake by themselves for the last hour. So let me get my baking pans. Oh, it's heavy. Okay, so I'm going to do 3 loaf pans. And what I have discovered over the years is to use plenty of parchment paper. You gotta use it. If you don't, it'll stick. Also, it kind of gets crispy on the outside, which is fine for the ends. I don't really care about those so much. But for the top, I kind of prefer not to have to cut it off. So I'm going to do this one so that you can see what I'm doing. So I cut my parchment to shape, and I do a strip across this way, and then a strip this way, and then I do 2 more across. So I've basically got 3 layers of parchment, except for the very bottom where I have 4. As I said, I don't like the top of my cake to burn. I do cut the ends off generally, so it's not such a big deal. Anyway, I pre-cut these because it's so much easier to do it all in one bowl. You measure it and then you cut a whole bunch of them to fit your pans. Alright. So yes, I do 2 batches every year. So this is the first batch, and if it doesn't turn out well, then I have a chance to tweak it for the second batch. But you know what? It's not happened to me. Oh, this turns out. Just fill these up. This is not a cake that rises very much. It rises a little, but it's mostly that it sets. So don't be afraid to fill up those tins. Smoosh it down, smoosh it into the corners, smoosh that parchment paper out of the way. Ready to go in the oven. As you can see, they're basically filled to the top, and they'll rise just a little bit. I'll show you when they come out. Okay, so welcome back. Obviously, it's not the same day. I had to change. I baked another batch of cakes. You saw what they look like when they come out of the oven. Once they're cold enough to handle, you just need to pull them out with the paper. It's usually pretty easy. They don't stick. And then you can peel the paper off, which I'm not going to do because it's really loud and crinkly. I will just show you what that looks like. So yeah, so then I put them in these bags. I actually do, whoops, I'm picking this up, 2 to a bag. I get the big 2.5 gallon bags and put 2 in each bag. I make 6 cakes, and that's what we'll be pulling out of the cupboard in December to put marzipan and icing on. So yes, this makes a lot of cake. And I like a lot of cake. I only do this once a year, and it lasts, as I said, for a long time. So if you're doing it yourself, you could try reducing the recipe. I never have. I've tried increasing the recipe, but never reducing it. But just remember, if you make too much, you don't even need to freeze it. Just put it in a Ziploc bag, put it in the cupboard. It'll be fine for a couple of years. You're going to be able to eat it in that time, trust me. Anyway, I hope you try it, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.